I have always looked at fan reactions, whether they be fully supportive or negative or aggressive or whatever they may be, as passion. And if you have a forum to vent your passion on, then one will. Sure, some people may word it in a way which is it doesn't make people feel great, but that's okay. Passion's passion, man.
Very, very early on, before season 1 of The Witcher even aired on Netflix, Henry Cavill, the star of the show, was answering questions like this from mainstream outlets. It was questions about the fan base and how there was a lot of toxicity in terms of some of the concerns in regards to the show. If you weren't around during that period of time, there was some outrage over the casting of the show, specifically with Ciri and also Triss. And a lot of people were worried that Netflix was going to go in a completely different direction with the show, and it was not going to be faithful to the source material and its Polish identity. That was something that Henry Cavill answered clearly. He said that no, look, these people are passionate about the books and they just want it to be authentic. And that was his answer to that toxic question, which I think took a lot of people by surprise and also angered some people. But in turn, he really wanted this to be a faithful adaptation. That is something that he's been adamant about for the last couple of years. It was ultimately the key to getting Henry Cavill to stay in the role of Geralt of Rivia for 7 seasons, which was the original plan that was laid out by showrunner Lauren Hissrich. Now, though Cavill is gone, Liam Hemsworth is going to be stepping into the boots of Geralt of Rivia in season 4, and it actually looks like Henry Cavill will not be portraying Superman. This was the belief that was going around very early on for why Cavill was stepping away from The Witcher. It was the belief that, look, he's going to be doing a lot of DC-related material in the future, he's probably going to do some training and stuff. It was something that never really made sense to me, because even if he was going to be playing the Man of Steel again, it probably wouldn't be another year or two. And I think that he probably could have worked it into his schedule. And that's why ultimately a lot of fans instantly went back to his past interviews and everything that we've seen from him in the past in regards to the show and his unhappiness over the direction. Specifically in regards to certain scenes, like with the death of Roach during season 2. It was supposed to be like a ha ha ha, okay, let's move on by Lauren Hissrich, but Cavill wanted something more emotional, and eventually she gave in. But it seems like those creative differences has been a common thread throughout the development of the show, the production. Outside of the many articles and interviews which confirm that suspicion, we also have reputable outlets such as Redanian Intelligence. Among their insiders and leakers, they confirm that Henry Cavill was actually considering leaving during season 2 because he was not seeing eye to eye with the producers. And then, as most of you know, in recent memory, a former writer on the show confirmed that the actual people behind the show do not like the source material or even the games. And that is why it's not surprising at all that Variety reports that Henry Cavill will not be returning to The Witcher despite Superman exit and fan demand. The reason why is nothing has changed with the show. The writers, the showrunner, everything is still the same. Now, we did get another interview from Lauren Hissrich, the Witcher showrunner, in which she kind of teased what had been happening behind the scenes. And again, it just points to, again, creative differences between Cavill and Hissrich. She said to outlet NME, "I do have a lot to say about Cavill's departure, and I think that there's a lot of, we'll obviously never get into exactly why Henry left, all of the reasons. Very interesting, she underlines all of the reasons, not just one, but I can say it's been a mutually respectful relationship, so please, please, please come back in 6 months, then can we talk?" Which she's trying to do that because right now she's on the marketing tour for Blood Origin, which actually releases in the coming days, and actually on Rotten Tomatoes right now, those reviews are still very, very much not pretty. We talked about this last video. I think it was at like 22% based on 9 reviews. It has gone up. It now has 21 reviews and a 38% critic review score, the overall consensus. And the summary on Rotten Tomatoes is a shallow excavation of ancient lore from Andrzej Sapkowski's fantasy series. Blood Origin shares ancestral DNA with The Witcher, but little of what makes the Mothership series memorable. And you know what actually makes the Mothership series memorable? It's Henry Cavill, who is no longer going to be a part of this production moving on. And instead of portraying Geralt of Rivia or the Man of Steel, he's going to be investing his time into something that he's even more passionate about, and that is Warhammer 40k, as Amazon recently gained the rights, and it looks like Henry Cavill is going to be playing a huge critical role in the development and production of that show, as well as starring in it. Based on Cavill's history and his commitment to staying faithful to the source material, that is something that will be front and center with Warhammer 40k, as he will finally have major creative input in the direction of that adaptation, which is indeed probably something that should have happened with The Witcher. It would have made it a much better product than what it is right now. Next, though, I want to move on to some remarks that were made by film director Denis Villeneuve. You may know him from Arrival, Prisoners, Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, and most recently Dune. He's one of my personal favorites, but I was watching an interview he had with James Cameron, and he made remarks about fantasy adaptations, and I thought what he said perfectly points out the problem with Hollywood and a lot of TV shows, especially The Witcher. And you're going to understand why I'm bringing this up in a second, but here's his remarks.
I remember watching Peter Jackson, The Lord of the Ring. I was feeling that he had tried at his best to stay close to the description of Tolkien at the time, that he didn't went away. It was, and I wanted to have the people who had read the book to feel that all the love and the respect and the reverence I had for Frank Herbert. And so I said, we will not express ourselves. We will try to bring Herbert to the screen as much as possible.
Bring Herbert to the screen. That's exactly what Witcher fans wanted from this Netflix show. They wanted Sapkowski's writing to be brought to the screen. That's all they wanted. That's what Cavill wanted. That's why he even bought into the show. That's what he was promised. That's what we were all promised by Lauren Hisrich, the showrunner. We weren't looking for their personal opinions and their writing. We wanted to see Sapkowski be faithful adaptation of the books. That's what we were promised. And now we proceed to this remark that was made by an actual writer from The Witcher. They deleted this tweet shortly after because they got a lot of pushback, but here is some writing, I believe, from season 3. This individual, he says, if there's one thing I'm definitely going to do, it's put all of my trauma into every single thing that I write. And it's a scene from Francesca, who says, I did that spell over and over for years until my father caught me. That's when he tried to lead the village in a crusade against me, but he failed. Gage held him down while I did that to his throat. The village built a statue in my honor. It's just, outside of this, people don't want to hear about these personal experiences of these writers. We want to see Sapkowski's writing. That's the promise that we got, which is the issue that all of us have with The Witcher right now, and it seems like Cavill himself had an issue with, which is why he's departing and going on to work on something that he's even more passionate for. But again, that is just one example, because Lauren Hisrich recently was on Instagram giving descriptions and explanations for all of the deviations from the book with season 2, and it just a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense, especially the Volith Mare villain arc of season 2, which just came out of nowhere, and because they thought that season 2 needed a villain, so they had to throw it in there, something that's completely unrelated to the books, not to mention Ciri and Yen's relationship, which at this point has been absolutely butchered in the books and the games. They're like mother and daughter, and at this current moment, based on season 2, Yen was just about to kill Ciri. The deviation is absolutely insane. Obviously, these are just a couple of the many story elements that have changed from the books to the TV show. And there is a long Reddit thread that we talked about in a previous video going over all of the evidence, a collection of evidence of all of the changes that have been made, and it's a great representation of why so many are upset with Lauren Hisrich and her fellow writers. Now, ultimately, while all of this chaos has been going on, a lot of people have been coming to Henry Cavill's defense and really understanding his point of view for why he has left the show. We've talked about a lot of the support that he's gotten. There's a petition with almost 300,000 signatures calling for the writers to be fired and for Henry Cavill to be brought back. And then there's just thousands of tweets in support of him and many critical of Lauren Hisrich and again her fellow writers. Now, we recently got a hell of a curveball. That's the best way I can explain it. There has been some people that have been critical of Henry Cavill. There was a G4 host, or a former G4 host. She attacked Cavill on Twitter about questionable things he said around Me Too. If you're not familiar, Cavill said that dating was harder, and the more traditional dating in which, you chase after a woman, you really can't do that now. And he experienced a lot of backlash for that. He ended up apologizing, but still these freaks use it as ammunition against him. This G4 host also attacked him for dating a 19-year-old, a consensual relationship. I don't really understand the anger about that, but that's the Twitter mob for you. But now the latest curveball is the Deuce Moy podcast. It's a gossip podcast, and they made allegations against Cavill. These allegations have been going all over Twitter and Reddit. There's actually a Reddit thread with over 2,000 upvotes that says maybe the Henry Cavill firing is a good thing. There was also a number of Twitter posts that have been coming about. Some actors and actresses have commented on it, saying that maybe Henry Cavill actually isn't a good person, and look what The Witcher showrunner and the writers had to experience. It's a smear campaign against Cavill. That's the best way to put it. And very interestingly, there was a YouTuber, I'm not really familiar with his content, but I have talked to him in the past, The Quartering. He said, "You may not want to hear this, but at least some of what was leaked about Henry Cavill on set of The Witcher is in fact true. I have multiple sources on set of The Witcher, and they have been telling me stuff like this for months." So that is somebody backing up these rumors that are come from an outlet which, even on their own website, that says they publish rumors and conjecture, not facts. In addition to information reported directly from sources, certain characters, situations, and events portrayed on this website are either products of the author's imagination or conjectures. Definitely a very, very credible source, but this is what they allege about Henry Cavill. I recently got this message and someone was like, "Do you want to know what really went down?" And I was like, "Sure, so let me just read it." It says, "At the beginning of the show, Henry was good to work with, a lot of unusual demands that made people feel like he wasn't a real team player, but that's not unusual for a big star, though in TV, it truly usually doesn't happen until the second season, but in season 2 and 3, something shifted, and he became really impossible for women to work with, which is always a big problem, but even worse here because the showrunner is a woman. You can understand the angle that they're trying to go with here. He would try to overrule her and try to get changes made last minute across the board without her knowledge. I doubt that, and based on one of the changes that we know was made, it actually went through her, and it was more loyal to the source material in the book, which has been the utmost concern for him. But yes, we have known about the creative differences, that's not too surprised, but this source says, if you know anything about Showrunner, this is completely screwed that he did this, supposedly. The showrunner has to sign off on every minuscule detail down to the buttons on a costume. Female writers and directors were suddenly completely ignored on set, unable to do their jobs. I find that hard to believe. Every department head was complaining. He started making comments. It wasn't that type of thing. He wasn't grabbing anyone or being lewd, but it was disrespectful and toxic all the time. Well, let's actually go to remarks that were made by one of his co-stars. I believe this is the Yen actress. She said about Henry Cavill that he's incredibly professional, polite, brilliant, very experienced, clearly in the world of acting and being on sets that big, very experienced, being a leader of a team with such grace. And every co-star he's acted with in the past has said pretty much that. So these allegations don't make any sense, but we will continue on because, again, they have been gaining steam on social media because people, again, are looking for ammunition, something to use to attack Cavill. He's deeply addicted to video games, this is the next attack, to the point where it was like working with any other addict. He was distracted, he was late, he was obsessive, and a lot of people thinking about that type of thing came from the gaming world. Video game bro language is not how you talk to coworkers. He's never talked like that in any interviews. I highly doubt he talks like that on set, and he wouldn't stop. Someone on the show compared it to watching getting brainwashed by Q, like his whole personality shifted. Eventually his disrespect escalated. If this sounds like fiction, it certainly feels like that's exactly what it is. He would rewrite scenes without even alerting the other actors in the scenes until it was time to shoot. He decided that he didn't want any romantic scenes at all. Don't know about that one. No kissing, no shirtless scenes, etc. So he didn't want to be sexualized. I don't see the controversy with that. He wanted complete control over storylines, but really had no idea the limitations of TV structure budget. I believe his first big role was on a TV show, wasn't it, like Rome? He formed a weird alliance with one writer who also was a gamer who eventually got fired after multiple HR complaints were made. That's something that has not been substantiated, and after that writer left, Henry did anything he could to hold up production and cause problems. Eventually, top brass at Netflix was tired of him costing them money with delays in HR investigations, and the showrunner was asked to construct a potential exit for him. Netflix reached out to him personally, and he was given one final warning and violated that warning with an email he sent to the entire writing staff right after that meeting. That was it. And again, this sounds like a fictional story of somebody that's trying to invent controversy to smear Henry Cavill. It definitely seems like this could be somebody on the Netflix Witcher staff, especially with another YouTuber claiming that they have evidence that some of that's included here is true, but a lot of this just sounds like made up nonsense just to make Cavill look bad. Seems like somebody who may be salty that Cavill is getting a lot of positivity and a lot of support with him leaving the show because he wants something that's more faithful, something that's more authentic to the actual book material. And I actually found this kind of funny, but an actual CD Projekt Red developer commented on this story saying, "My dude didn't want to be sexualized and wanted showrunners to stay loyal to the source material. Also, did you just call gamers that? Plus, starting your claims by saying, I just got this message from someone smells like fake news." And that's exactly what it sounds like, fake news. But yet, as ridiculous as all of this sounds, there are many on Twitter treating it as fact. We have Witcher stan accounts acting like this is the real deal. We have actresses saying Henry Cavill got gamer red-pilled and became impossible to work with. The female showrunner for The Witcher and many female employees were treated like garbage, and it also made producing the show impossible. Throwing the blame on Cavill, very not surprising in my opinion. And the same individual continued saying, so when people are like, oh, he quit because the writers don't respect the lore, STFU, they love that series and he was allegedly working against them. And then they bring up his history of considering he dates weirdly young women and had weird comments about Me Too. This does not come as a shock. And then one of the top responses to this thread was, oh boy, mildly disappointing, but I should have assumed it was that thing since the showrunner is a woman and the changes made the show more interesting than the books. These people are just nauseating to deal with. But ultimately, as it stands, Henry Cavill is moving on, getting ready for Warhammer 40k and whatever else he may be doing. And then there's Lauren Hissrich, who is gearing up for Season 3 of The Witcher. Based on the recent work with Blood Origin and also Season 2, I'd be very concerned with the quality of this upcoming season, and seasons, I should say. But she teased that Season 3 will be closer to the books and it will give Henry Cavill the most heroic send-off, so I guess that's good. And you know, if they had a problem with him, I don't think they would give him a heroic send-off, but maybe that's just my personal take on that. She said that Henry has given so much to the show and so we want to honor that appropriately. What is so interesting is that Season 3 to me is the closest thing that we've done as one-to-one adaptation of the books, which should have been the goal from the get-go. Obviously we can't do every page, but Time of Contempt gave us so many big action events, plot points, defining character moments, huge reveals of a big bad. There's so much to do that we were able to stick really, really closely with the books. Which, as you might expect on Twitter and various social medias, the reaction to these comments have not really been all that positive. Many just saying that it's more lies and begging to get people to continue watching the show, which may in fact be an accurate assessment of The Witcher on Netflix, a show that I'm very concerned about and also not feeling that it's going to last the 7 seasons that was originally envisioned. I still think that with Liam Hemsworth, the show is going to experience a dramatic decline in quality as well as viewership, and that will lead to Netflix finally pulling the plug. But we'll see. There's spin-offs still planned and such, and Netflix really wanted this to be their biggest franchise after Stranger Things, but it just doesn't seem like it's set out for that. Anyway, what do you make of this anonymous source and what they said about Henry Cavill, as well as the state of The Witcher on Netflix? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also, check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games, and again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.